So our next special guest speaker is Chef Jen from Food Shift. Food Shift is located in Alameda and develops practical solutions to reduce wasted food, nourish our neighbors, and provide jobs. They recover food that would otherwise go to waste, use it to fuel their culinary education programs for folks overcoming barriers to employment, and upcycle the food for catering and to feed those striving for food security. Managing food waste is the friendliest thing we can do for the planet, and at the same time nourishing our communities. Or as Kalani mentioned this morning, reducing food waste is a revolutionary act. So if we can all give a warm welcome to our next speaker, please.
Hi everyone, I am Chef Jen and welcome to my home kitchen in Oakland. I am so happy to be with all of you today, and we're going to be sharing a little bit about how to reimagine our leftovers. One thing about leftovers, I have my bingo card here actually, and one of the things that's on this bingo card is reframing, and something about reframing how we think about leftovers is actually to think about them as ingredients instead of leftovers. So we're using them to create something new. So we're going to do two recipes today. One I've prepped and made most of, and then the other one we're going to start a little bit more from scratch. The first recipe is called a Veggie Cup Strata, and we're using stale bread for that. It's a stale bread and egg dish and vegetables. So this bread, it needs a new life. It's been around our house for about a week. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cube it into small pieces. And it's going to go into a muffin tin. So I'm going to give this a little bit of oil. This part is really important because this egg dish will really stick if you don't. And so I'm just going to grease it, make sure that it's coated. And these cubes of bread are going to fit in the bottom of our muffin tin. Then I have some vegetables. I roasted some asparagus and mushrooms the other night, and I'm just going to sprinkle them in here. I've already whisked some egg with a little bit of salt, and I'm going to pour it over and let it sit for about 10 minutes to make sure that the bread is soaking up the egg. And then it just is going to go into the oven at 375 for about 15 minutes. I actually made one earlier, and this is what it looks like. And you can use whatever ingredients you have. You can also, if you don't eat egg, or if you're vegan, you can use some egg alternatives, and there's a lot of those out there right now. And it's a little portable, perfect protein-filled dish, and you can eat it for breakfast, lunch, or as a snack. So the next thing I'm gonna do is what I'm calling a choose your own adventure bowl. So we're gonna start off with starch as our base, and this is some leftover rice. And you could start with any kind of starch. You could use couscous, you could use brown rice, you could even use roasted potatoes. I have some lime, and I just store my limes and citrus and things like that in plastic baggies in the refrigerator, and then when I'm done using them, I wash them and reuse them. So I'm gonna just squeeze a little bit of lime on here. This is just plain white rice that I made the other night for dinner. And then I have some cilantro that needs to get used here, and I'm just gonna chop it up and sprinkle it in here. And I think I didn't mention actually what we're making with this bowl, and today we're making a burrito bowl, but there are so many different options of what you could actually make. I wrote them all down and I will be sharing them with all of you. You could make a teriyaki bowl. You could make even a burger bowl, as I mentioned, with leftover potatoes. And so this is going to be the base for our dish. We made tacos for dinner the other night. And so these are a lot of things that I had left over. We're going to be reducing on our bingo card with these green onions. As you can see, they're kind of starting to turn color and wilt a little bit. We're just going to chop the end off and thinly slice them. And then they're going to be used in re-spicing our beans. I'm going to turn on my heat here. I have beans from the other night, and I just wanted to mention how I store some of these things. Any leftovers that we have in the refrigerator, we keep them all in one spot. So when you're reaching to go and make a new dish, you know exactly where to grab first and to reduce your waste. And then I have a little piece of tape written on here that says what is actually in here. You could use any kind of tape and a Sharpie or a marker. And then when you go into the refrigerator and you can't actually see what it is, you know what's inside. And I collect takeout containers and different kinds of containers. Like this was a jam jar and now I store veggies in it sometimes. It's a good way to reuse things. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of olive oil into our pan here. And my beans are kind of plain because they were a part of tacos. So they need to be re-spiced, and that's what we're gonna do. This oil isn't quite hot, but we're gonna just get started. And I'm gonna put these green onions in here. You can hear a little bit of a sizzle. And because my beans are kind of plain, I'm just gonna put a little bit of salt in here. Move this around. And then I'm gonna drop my beans in here. These are kidney beans, but you could use any kind of bean. You could also use lentils. Just some type of protein. And then I have leftover canned tomatoes. I made pasta a couple of nights ago and I made a tomato sauce, and these are just leftover tomatoes. I'm gonna pour some in here and get my beans a little bit saucy. I'll give this a stir. And we're just gonna let that sit for a couple of minutes and heat up. And then we're gonna come back over here and we're gonna start building our bowl. So the first thing that's going to come in is our grain, which is the rice that we just re-spiced with the cilantro and the lime. And if your family all likes different kinds of ingredients, you could lay all of the ingredients out, and I'm sure everyone's bowl would look different. It just depends on what your taste preferences are, what your favorite things to eat are. We have some slaw. I made a coleslaw. Again, it's labeled. And this is just some cabbage and carrot and a little bit of salt. And this was part of our taco dish the other night. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of that here. I can hear our beans starting to sizzle. And then this is, let's see, this is part of the bingo recovery. So I found this poor little radish in the bottom of my vegetable drawer. It must have gotten detached from the rest of its little buddy somehow. And so it definitely needs to get used. It's pretty wilted and it's been in the refrigerator for a bit. And I came up with another thing that could have been on the bingo card, which is actually revive. Because this is kind of limp, we don't have time to do it today, but what I could do is put slice it and put it in some ice water, and it's gonna help crisp up the radish again. So I'm just gonna chop the top off there and thinly slice this radish. And that's gonna be one of our garnishes for our bowl. I also have a little bit of leftover guacamole from the other night. See, it's just a tiny bit, but it's a perfect amount to just dollop on the top of this when we're finished assembling. And then I have some pickled jalapenos and carrots. These are perfect things to have in the house, just to jazz up your bowl. It's kind of like an extra element. And one thing I wanted to mention is that when you're finished with whatever you've pickled or whatever vegetables you have in here, save the juice because it's vinegary, it's a little bit salty, it's a little bit sweet, and it can really like jazz up whatever your dish is. So if you put this all together and it was a little bit boring, you could just spoon a little bit of this liquid on top and you're not wasting anything. Let's check on our beans. Oh yeah, these are looking good. I'm gonna grab my bowl. We're gonna put some beans in here. And again, this could be any kind of bean. You could do lentils. You could even do tofu or another kind of plant-based protein. Okay. So we're gonna come back over here. I'm actually gonna add a little bit more rice. You could add lettuce, you could put corn in here. Anything goes, it's the choose your own adventure. Then I'm gonna put a little bit of this guacamole on top. I was able to keep it from browning. I put a little bit of lime on it and some salt. And then a little of our jalapeno and carrots. And we're trying to include as many colors as we can, so we're eating the rainbow. Including more colors means that you're getting nutritional properties of all different kinds of vegetables. And then I have this leftover salsa. And I'm just going to drizzle this on top. This is a little bit of a spicy bowl, but again, since you're choosing your own adventure, you can make it however you'd like to. So we've covered respicing, reducing, reframing, recovering, reimagining, and reviving, the one that I made up. I am excited to see how all of you are reimagining your leftovers. I did see one video of someone reimagining a rice bowl or rice ball, and I'm so excited to see what everyone else comes up with. One other thing I wanted to mention, which this is separate from this bowl. Oh, and I forgot to add my radishes. Let's sprinkle that on top. So look how colorful this is. And again, you can use whatever types of ingredients that you have in your refrigerator. There's not a recipe. It's more of a guideline. So you don't feel like you need to go out and buy something specifically. I just wanted to mention sauces. Sauces are a way that you can bring whatever your leftovers, your bowl looks like. It's a way that you can kind of bring it all together. Another thing that you can do is, this is just a hummus, and like I mentioned, saving the juice. This is some juice from marinated artichokes, and it has vinegar, a little bit of oil, and some herbs. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit of this in here and whisk it up. And this could be a sauce for a Mediterranean type bowl. You could do couscous, cherry tomatoes, really anything that you have in your refrigerator. I think I've said that enough. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is just about plant-based eating. Plant-based eating is eating vegetarian is a major contributor to decreasing the impacts of climate change. And so even if you're a meat eater, if you can just a couple of nights a week, try and have a plant-based or a vegetarian meal, even just doing that is making a big impact. And I'm not sure how we are on timing, if there are questions or if we need to wrap up.
We have time for questions and comments. If anyone wants to just, I know I just learned that the chat isn't working for everybody. So go ahead and just unmute yourself and say your name if you have a question or comment, if you want to share. What are your leftovers reimagine? Well, Jen, I don't think you've been seeing the chat, but there is a lot of chatter about labeling, about how everything you made did not look like leftovers. Someone said they don't eat beans, but they may now.
Oh, nice.
Eating the rainbow is a new term for some folks. Keeping marinades of jarred veggies, brilliant. Anything else I missed that anyone else wants to highlight?
Chef Jen, would you be able to talk about the go-to first containers or box that you have in your refrigerator? Yeah,
so it's not in there right now because all of my leftovers are out. One thing I wanted to mention is sometimes when I make rice or I make beans, I make a lot of it at the beginning of the week and then I can use it throughout the week. So it's kind of one less thing to have to do. A good tip for food waste reduction is meal planning and kind of looking in your refrigerator, looking in your pantry, seeing what kinds of things need to be used, and then building on that. So not buying things that you don't need or bringing home things that you already have in your refrigerator that need to get used. Putting a box in your refrigerator that says eat first. It could be a cardboard box. It could be any kind of box, a shoe box even. But then everyone that's eating in your household, if they go into the refrigerator, they know that that's the first place to look to grab leftovers or to grab things that need to get eaten. Any other questions?
We have time maybe for one more question, if any, or comment. There's some resources in the chat for sure.
Hey, thank you so much. That was great. I just wonder, one, how you do your food shopping, and two, what kind of herbs you use in your foods.
My shopping, so I actually like to get a CSA box from the farmer's market. It's about $20 per trip. I go to the South Berkeley market, and all the things that we're getting are seasonal and kind of like what's at its prime. So this week, for example, it was oranges, broccoli, radishes, asparagus, and it's pretty plentiful. And we have a house of 2, but it feeds both of us for the entire week. And then obviously with staples and pantry things to add. And our herbs, it kind of depends. I feel like some people don't like cilantro, but we really like it in our household. And so that's something that goes into our dishes quite often. Parsley as well, because I feel like they're both pretty versatile. We like spice in our house, so a lot of times we'll put chili flakes into our dishes just to make things have a little bit more heat. And one thing I wanted to mention is I'm going to write the non-recipe guidelines for a bunch of different types of bowls and how to make the egg dish, and that will be available to all of you, I believe, next week.
Let's give some love to Chef Jen, and I just want to also just appreciate, there was another appreciation from Erica saying, thank you for letting us into your home, into your kitchen. Makes it feel so real and doable that we can reimagine our leftovers. So thank you, Jen. Chef Jen.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm glad that you all were able to come into my kitchen today.